Today I wanted to review something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for me. If you've been watching my channel for a while, if you've been watching my live streams for a while, you know that when anyone ever asks me if they should buy an older version of a lineup, I always say no, buy the newest one, it will definitely last you longer. But more recently, I had a large 12.9-inch iPad Pro that I didn't need anymore, and there was a very nice guy in the area who traded that for his old MacBook Air that I've been using for a little while, just to kind of have a little throwback day. And guys, keep in mind that the 15-inch MacBook Pro was the only laptop I've ever owned. I'm used to that butterfly keyboard, I'm used to USB-C only, I'm used to not having all those ports on the side, and I'm used to the extra large trackpad, that Retina display. That is all I've ever gotten used to as a MacBook user. So switching back to the MacBook Air was very different for me. Finally got to have MagSafe, which a lot of people complained about on the new MacBooks. You know, it's okay. I get that a lot of people like that you can unplug the charger very quickly, but I'll be honest, in my experience, and this may just be because I'm used to having laptops that don't have that, I found it quite annoying how easily the charge port would come unplugged, because sometimes I'm stretching the MacBook Air from the wall trying to get it as far away from it as I can, and it got kind of annoying that it falls out very quickly. You know, without much tension, without much roughness, it would pop out and I would have to plug it back in. That would get a little bit annoying, and the more annoying thing that I really appreciate about the new MacBooks is that I'd be sitting somewhere, I would grab the charger, and I realized, oh wait, I can only charge from one side. I would have to turn the MacBook this way, change the way I was sitting, or have to get closer because MagSafe is only on one side of the MacBook Air, which means that its range from its cable is actually a lot less than that of a MacBook Pro from 2016 with USB-C on both sides. To me, it feels like there's a lot more flexibility. I can plug it in from here. If I'm sitting in a different position, I can unplug it and plug it in from the side. I personally like that more. And I get that USB-C isn't MagSafe, but to be honest, it is a very small port that pops out of its charging port fairly simply. And I've never once had an incident where someone tripped on my MacBook charger and the MacBook went flying. That may have been more possible back in the old days where we needed MagSafe, but I feel like now our battery lives are getting pretty good on the new MacBooks, and I feel like now that we have more options to charge with, that MagSafe is convenient in very rare instances, but for the most part, I would rather have a single type of port on both sides, which is USB-C. The MacBook Air is bizarre to me because Apple really is still selling it. However, they've discontinued the 11.5-inch version, so you can only get the 13-inch one, and I just realized that the MacBook Air's display is the last display from Apple that is not a Retina. Everything else they sell has very high pixel density, and it looks beautiful, but they're still selling the MacBook Air, and that does in fact not have a Retina display. It also, of course, hasn't seen a design upgrade in I think 5 to 6, maybe 7 years, I don't know. It's still got that same actual clicking trackpad, got the same keys they've been using in it for years. It still has the USB-A ports on the side, as well as Thunderbolt, and bizarrely, one of the few laptops to keep this around, it actually has aluminum bezels. There's very few laptops out there today that don't have black and glass bezels, but the MacBook Air keeps them around, and to be honest, they're quite enormous. It's kind of distracting how ugly that looks to me, but what it does mean is that the graphics on the inside and the GPU, if you want to call it that, and the processor don't have to work as hard to produce a, 2.5 or 3K display like the new MacBooks do. This means that with its small Intel Core i5 or i7 processors, MacBook Air is still pretty powerful. Not to say it's a powerhouse. No one buys the MacBook Air for gaming, no one buys it for editing. However, in a mild sense, it can do it. When you run Final Cut Pro on it, you can kind of edit 1080p at 60 frames a second video. It's not preferable, but it is possible. You have to kind of wait for it to render a little bit. It will get very hot and you will want your charger nearby. And if you're running extremely basic games like Counter-Strike Go, it actually does run. I was able to play with it and I didn't get very high frame rates at all, but it was doable, which is crazy considering that this particular MacBook Air was made in 2012. Mine's got 128 gigabytes of storage, which still feels ridiculous now that we have laptops with less storage than our smartphone. Given, 256 here, but on the big old laptop, no, it's 128. Bizarre. However, what I have enjoyed and that I didn't realize was that even this 5-year-old MacBook Air can accept AirDrop from iOS devices. This has been extremely helpful for when my 15-inch MacBook Pro fills up, I need to offload footage to store somewhere else, so I'll AirDrop it to the MacBook Air. It's like a 128 gigabyte, very large, but AirDrop enabled flash drive, which again is pretty convenient. So what I'm anticipating is that any day now, in probably this year, we're going to see the MacBook Air get discontinued. Time and time again, people keep asking me, are they going to refresh the MacBook Air? I've given you the same answer, but let me repeat myself here. They already did refresh the MacBook Air. They just didn't call it that. I don't know why. Apple's naming scheme is always screwed up. It's called the 12-inch MacBook. It's lighter than the MacBook Air. and it did everything that the MacBook Air stood for. Back when it came out, everyone hated this thing, and I feel like people forget about that. Now everyone's like, oh, the MacBook Air, it's got great specs. I like the ports on it. It's a very nice notebook. It's because you're in the future of when it came out. When the MacBook Air came out, everyone was freaking out that it didn't have a CD drive. Everyone was questioning why it only had a couple USB ports, and they thought that it didn't have any storage, even though it was solid state based. They were like, oh, there's like no storage on it. And they looked at the specs and thought it was a joke, and it was overpriced, and that all you were really getting out of it was a lighter laptop. But it turned out to be really successful, and as you can see now, we're in the future. People love this thing. Tons of people own the MacBook Air, and it's a great notebook for college students or casual Mac users, and even some light video editing. Flash forward to now, everyone hates the 12-inch MacBook. They're like, oh, there's no ports on it. There's only one port, USB-C. Oh, the specs, they're a joke. There's no storage. There's no processor. I want a laptop to have an SD card slot. I want it to have a USB-A port. Now, we don't like that as a general public. I do. I love the 12-inch MacBook. However, in the future, I'm anticipating that the reception for the 12-inch MacBook is slowly going to change. Likely, the price is going to go down as well, and people are really going to fall in love with it just like they did with the MacBook Air. It's light, it's portable, it's still a very capable laptop. The 12-inch MacBook is capable of video editing. As people during my live streams have told me, they even edit CAD files and do 3D modeling on the 12-inch MacBook. It may not look like much, but the processor seems to surprise people. And yes, they can get by with one port. So I'm not gonna suggest anyone should buy the MacBook Air directly from Apple. The only incident where I would find the MacBook Air being a good purchase is if you're on Facebook online yard sale, you're on eBay, you're going to college in about 2 weeks or a month, or you need a quick machine that can edit videos that aren't super advanced, but it'll get the job done. So you found an old one online that's like $400 to $500. Then I think it's acceptable to be like, okay, it's not brand new, but it's gonna do basic tasks. I'll throw $400 to $500 at a old used MacBook Air. But I don't think anyone should buy it directly from Apple. If you have the $1,000 to spend on that, you're so close to being able to afford something better, like a MacBook Pro or a 12-inch MacBook. Those are going to be worth the money. Keep saving, just hold out a little bit longer. But yeah, MacBook Air is an interesting chapter in Apple's history. And just FYI, by the way, I don't like that the Apple logo glows. I think it's weird. There, I said it. Everyone out there hated me because I was fine with the 15-inch MacBook Pro not having that. No, this MacBook feels hollow. The white glow on the back is distracting, and I prefer to mesh my iPhone and just have a mirror finish. There, dislike all you want, guys. And while you're at it, let me know what you think in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.